Hello, my name is Ruth Hadikin, and I'd like to talk about the Saturn-Neptune square that we've been experiencing this year. Actually, we've been experiencing it from as early as November 2014, and we'll still be experiencing the last wave from about August 2000 up to August 2017. So what's it about the Saturn-Neptune square? Well, a square is considered to be a challenging aspect. It's an area of tension that causes us to take some kind of action in order to resolve the discomfort. And the kind of action we take depends upon whether we're acting from conscious awareness or unconscious reacting. When a square is involved, we certainly feel the discomfort. If we're on the conscious awareness side of the fence, we can use the tension and the subsequent action as a catalyst for growth. And if we're on the unconscious reacting side of the fence, we can get ourselves into hot water and maybe feel as though the universe is conspiring against us somehow. It isn't. Ultimately, every time we experience challenging aspects like this, there are opportunities for further awakening and the evolution of consciousness, and that's really what it's all about. So how we experience the tension of a square depends upon the nature of the planets involved and which areas of our personal lives the square touches. And our natal chart will show us which, if any, natal planets are in aspect to the square, making any kind of connection, important connection to the square. So while squares are always challenging, the potential for growth is often easier to see when the planets themselves have an easy relationship. In other words, if they like each other. So like the Sun and Jupiter, for example, the tension in a Sun-Jupiter square might be more along the lines of too much of a good thing or burning ourselves out. When the planets involved don't get along anyway, it's a completely different story. And this is the case with Saturn and Neptune. So now, if you're new to astrology, what we mean by a square is when the planets are at a 90-degree angle to one another in a horoscope. So that's considered to be a challenging aspect, as opposed to other energetic relationships that have a more easy flow to them. So Saturn and Neptune traditionally do not make fine bedfellows in astrology. Saturn's all about limits, boundaries, what is realistic, method, what can we feasibly achieve with our given resources within a given time. On the other hand, by contrast, Neptune is vast, unbounded, the ocean, flowing freely, uncontained, timeless, beyond all limitation. So when we consider a Saturn-Neptune square from this perspective, you have to ask yourself, is it possible to put the ocean in a box? That's basically summing up the Saturn-Neptune square. You can either preserve the integrity of the box, in which case you might have some stagnant water, but you've got nothing like the vital, alive, active, living, breathing, vital, life-giving ocean. Or you can preserve the integrity of the ocean, which washes away, dissolves, or destroys the box. So neither option sounds appealing, which brings us to a third option. We can shift our perspective. And that is really why I'm recording this video this week, because from the 15th of September to the 28th of September, Mercury is moving into alignment with this Saturn-Neptune square and creating a third point. They're forming a triangle that we call a T-square. In this case, it's a mutable T-square because the mutable signs are involved. We've got Saturn in Sagittarius, we've got Neptune in Pisces, and Mercury, which is retrograde in Virgo, will move into alignment in opposition to Neptune. At the same time, it will make a square to Saturn. So we will have Mercury and Neptune in opposition, and both of them will be squaring Saturn, and that is making what we call a mutable T-square, because the mutable signs of Sagittarius, Pisces and Virgo are involved. Now remember, with the T-square, the with the square between Neptune and Saturn, the third option is a shift in perspective. Now, esoterically, Mercury is responsible for the creation of the rainbow bridge, which means the shift from lower mind to higher mind. And Mercury does that because the planet Mercury in astrology is all about the movement of mind, the movement of thoughts. And wherever we've got movement, there's always the great potential for a shift in perspective. And because Mercury is retrograde at the moment, it actually brings a little more depth. It brings a more reflective quality. During Mercury retrograde periods, it's actually quite a good time for meditation. In the outer world, Mercury retrograde periods are notorious for disruptions in communication. We can have misunderstandings, miscommunication, technology breakdowns, disruptions in our day-to-day travel, commuting, short journeys, things like that. So in the outer world, a Mercury retrograde period has got a bit of a bad reputation for disrupting things. But I believe that's for a deeper reason, because I think during a Mercury retrograde period, we're to turn our attention inwards and become more reflective. And when we do that, we find that inner worlds can open up to us, because Mercury can help us to shift our thoughts, shift our perspective, and make that leap of consciousness from lower mind to higher mind, where we can get greater clarity. So that's the potential that's in this mutable T-square right now. It's got the potential to bring us a great shift in perspective, a great shift in consciousness, and really help us to elevate our experience of the Saturn-Neptune square. So when we can accept that invitation, Saturn-Neptune really offers to quantum leap our consciousness, and that's what I'd like to talk about today. And this means looking to the higher vibration then, and the deeper spiritual meaning of the planets, and then finding those qualities within ourselves. So esoterically, the highest octave of Neptune is illumination. Now, in astrology, when Neptune makes transits, meaning Neptune crosses over points in our natal chart, it evolves us. Neptune is one of the slower moving planets. It's one of the planets of transformation, and it transforms through a 3-step process. At the lower level, Neptune brings glamour, it brings illusion, it brings confusion and delusion. It seems to muddy the waters and make everything foggy and unclear. And we can get caught up in glamour, we can get caught up in the illusion. And then at the next stage, the second step in the process, we crash to the ground. Neptune brings a disillusionment, a necessary disillusionment, because that's bringing us the awareness of how our mind conjures up illusions, how we fool ourselves, how we delude ourselves. It brings us an awareness of that process. And then following that necessary but painful often disillusionment, Neptune then can bring us illumination, because Neptune can lead us into universal consciousness, universal love, the real highest bliss of universal consciousness. That's the highest potential, and that's the greatest gift of Neptune. In Buddhist Astrology by Jampa Shanuman, the book Buddhist Astrology, he calls Neptune the spiritualizing pole, because Neptune has the potential to spiritualize what it touches. And for us to experience the spiritual qualities of Neptune, we need to shift to higher consciousness, which will take us out of the lower illusion, delusion experience of Neptune and into that higher spiritual experience of oneness, which is the highest potential of Neptune. Now, let's take a look. So in this configuration that we're talking about now, the Saturn-Neptune square, and just this short window where we have the mutable T-square, Neptune can be thought of as illumination, the potential for our highest light, the spiritualizing quality in the configuration. So now let's look at Saturn. What's Saturn up to? Well, traditionally, Saturn is the embodiment of limitation. This present lifetime, in truth, is finite. Very Saturnian to say, but our lives do end. The image of Father Time is Saturn personified. We're on a cycle that will end in this physical realm. And another Saturnian personification is the Grim Reaper. Before Pluto was discovered, actually, Saturn was traditionally the planet of death, symbolizing the end of a cycle. Time running out. Saturn reminds us of what is realistic to expect and to achieve. Saturn causes us to ask again and again, what is really real? What is really real? Saturn is the ultimate reality check. And it might be difficult to see then how this can possibly fit with the beautiful spiritualizing universal essence of Neptune. And this is where we now need to leap our consciousness. It's only by deeply seeing and knowing that which is real that we can understand our true nature as spiritual beings, because our spiritual nature really is real. And Saturn also rules the path of discipleship and spiritual growth. Countries such as Tibet, Nepal and India, where there's a strong focus placed on correct discipline to attain enlightenment, are said to be ruled by Saturn. Melanie Reinhardt, another brilliant astrologer, in her book Chiron, Chiron, the Healing Journey, she proposes authenticity as a higher vibration keyword for Saturn, and that is the key to understanding the highest potential of this Saturn-Neptune square. It's really, for all of us, it's really about the degree to which we can hear the call to authentic light. So Saturn is calling us to be ever more deeply authentic, while Neptune is calling us to our highest light. And Mercury is leading us towards the rainbow bridge between lower mind and higher mind by shifting our perspective, elevating our consciousness. So between the 15th of September and the 28th of September 2016, we've got the potential to make a huge shift in consciousness by being more reflective, being more meditative, and that will totally give us a very different experience of the Saturn-Neptune square. And then from that point forward until August 2017, as we continue to experience the Saturn-Neptune square, we can bring our higher consciousness to it, and then we will have a catalyst that can potentially catapult us to our highest authentic light, our real light. Now, Saturn's also in Sagittarius, and Saturn rules the structure of mind, while the highest octave of Sagittarius uplifts humanity through the revelation of truth and wisdom. So there's a powerful force here for changing the structure of our minds beyond our previous limitations, really shifting our consciousness, really making a shift in perspective and turning our attention towards the light. And Neptune is also in dignity in Pisces, which means, Neptune really, really loves being in the sign of Pisces, the sign of universal love. So when we get beyond the lower experience of Neptune, the fantasy, the glamour, the illusion and the delusion, we will discover the truth of unity consciousness as higher love. And that's what Saturn really, really wants. We will discover our own authenticity as beings of light in higher consciousness. There's no better planet than Saturn for helping us to see what is real and what is illusory. And love is real. So this is one of my favourite quotes. I've quoted this often, and I'm going to say it here again now. You live in illusion and the appearance of things. There is a reality, but you do not know this. When you understand this, you will see that you are nothing. And being nothing, you are everything. That is all. And that's a quote from His Holiness Kalu Rinpoche. So remember though that this is a square. Even though there is a great potential for growth, it won't be an easy ride and it won't feel like all is love and light, as everything that is unreal and illusory will be challenged. A square brings us tension, challenge, and it means we must act. We must act in order to turn it to our advantage. Don't waste this next couple of weeks while Mercury is retrograde making this T-square. It will be uncomfortable, and the potential for a shift in perspective and higher consciousness is enormous. So go deeper in your meditation. Don't worry about the technical glitches and the Mercury retrograde hold-ups. They're all just telling you to leave the outer world alone for a couple of weeks. Go on your own little mini retreat. Go deeper into your meditation. We all need to be surfing right now so we don't get swept away by an ocean of Neptunian illusion and glamour. And conscious awareness is the key. If we remain in unconscious reacting, we can find ourselves stifled, limited, caught up in illusion and being tossed around on the high seas. And Saturn is calling on us to be prepared. In this case, we prepare by strengthening our self-discipline. No, this doesn't mean you can't have another cookie. What it means is to stay focused on your spiritual growth. And remember, we've already had, we've been in this Saturn-Neptune square quite a lot now this year, and also last May and last November. So reflect on that time and what it brought up in you. Where did you feel constricted? Where did you feel more spiritual? Keep your attention on your highest light. And if you find yourself in unconscious reacting, breathe deeply and keep returning yourself to your center. Your highest light is your own consciousness. And Mercury is retrograde in Virgo. And Virgo brings us, at the higher consciousness level, Virgo brings us awareness of the Divine Mother, the Divine Feminine, and it brings us somatic awareness, the felt sense in the body. So as you breathe deeper, go deeper in your meditation, pay attention to your body and allow your body to take the lead and guide you. Simply keep your attention there, surf the waves, notice your real light, and that's how you will make the most of this Saturn-Neptune square and the current mutable T-square. Thanks for listening. See you next time. Bye-bye.